Thank you for tuning in to episode 247 of This Week in Real Estate, the T-Wire podcast, broadcast live Wednesday, September 13th, 2023. Are boomers to blame? This episode was brought to you by listeners and viewers just like you. I don't have a way for you to send me any money yet, so instead of doing that, I just want you to take a second, share the show. Send it to somebody in the industry that you may think might need a quick run through of exactly what's happening in the news headlines. So share it with lenders, title companies, any kind of real estate agents, investors that you might know. And also, if you're watching live, you can join the discussion. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, you can make a comment, and then I can display your comment and talk about you or reference your comment, just like Olivier from Canada. What's up, Olivier? He said he was first. He's going to be back after his showing. He's showing a house right now. There was one time that somebody was showing a house and had an AirPod in one ear listening to the show. It's funny. Matt LaMarche is there. What's up, Matt? Matt's also joining us on Clubhouse, going through the airport right now, so it's a little bit loud. But if you do join us on Clubhouse, you can actually add your voice to the program. So we have a couple of moderators there that'll be popping in and out during the show. So be sure that you have a profile filled out if you want to come up. Just raise your hand and then you can join the discussion. The whole purpose of the show, the whole reason why we created it, is so that you would have one place to go for about an hour a week to get a succinct, professional commentary on the real estate news headlines of the week. So thanks everybody for joining us. We are not going to delay much today. We're going to get right into it. Oh, we do have, look at that. We have a lot of comments on YouTube already. What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us. From Olivier, Elizabeth Nightingale, she says hello. Hey, Elizabeth, thanks for joining us. So last week's show, I had the NAR accountability guy. If you guys missed that, you need to go back and watch it because it was really good, in my opinion. He had some wonderful things to say about everything that's happening at NAR towards the end of the show. And that is still growing and still booming. So if you missed that, you could also follow me. You can follow me at Ray Zorback on Instagram, RayZorback. But we have some shorts coming out on our T-Wire Pod account too, and I'll reshare it on mine as well. Janice Fleming. What's up, Janice? Thanks for joining today. She's popping in. First off, I want to get to this headline that was in CNBC. Mortgage demand stalls at a level not seen since 1996. This is a super scary headline because if you're somebody that's thinking about selling a house and you see that mortgage demand is stalling that much, I mean, what's that tell you? That tells you that buyers aren't going to buy a house. There's no one making application for financing right now. Obviously, if it's that bad since 1996, right? Well, maybe. Let's look at the details here. Higher mortgage rates continue to take their toll on mortgage demand, especially for refinancing. The total mortgage application volume dropped 0.8% last week compared to the previous week, according to the Mortgage Bankers Association seasonally adjusted index. Demand for refinances dropped 5% for the week. That's 31% lower than a year ago. And last year, the rates were still pretty good, so that makes sense that they would drop. But last year, I think it was about 30% lower than the previous year as well. The refinance share of the mortgage activity decreased to 29.1% of total application volume from 30%. As a comparison, at this time of year in 2020, when the pandemic monetary policy had interest rates around 3%, the share of mortgage application was about 63%. So again, about 30% and 30%. All right, now here's a key statistic. So if you only read this headline and you're talking to your clients are going to be worried, first off. But if you only read that part of the headline, this is a crucial piece that I think a lot of people missed. Applications for mortgages to purchase a home rose 1%. What? So the headline is mortgage demand stalls at a level not seen before since 1996. Applications for mortgages to purchase a home rose 1%. Now that's still 27% lower than last year. And again, I think last year was again about 20%, or I think it was 24% lower than the previous year. So it's probably still 50% lower than 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But still, this is not a big scary number considering it rose 1%. Mortgage applications decreased. This is a quote from Joel Kahn. He's a Mortgage Bankers Association economist. He said mortgage applications decreased for the 7th time in 8 weeks, reaching the lowest level since 1996. Given how high rates are right now, there continues to be a minimal refinance activity and reduced incentive for homeowners to sell and buy at a higher rate. And I think that's really what's driving it, is especially the mortgage application volume seems to be the refinance activity. When you have like 90% of buyers with an interest rate lower than 6, and interest rates are currently at 7.27, then there's going to be very few people that find a need to refi. Like what interest rate do you have to have right now to look at this situation and say, I think I'm going to refi? It's not the rate. It's going to be the equity. There's another report that we're not going to get to today that talks about how many trillions of dollars are available for the consumers in their home. And that is equity that's untapped, basically. And that seems to be what people are using it for. So people that are refining, cash out refi, taking the money out at a 7% rate. But it seems like you go to the bank and maybe get a more competitive rate instead of taking it against your home. But what do I know? Oh, what's up, Kevin? Haven't seen you in a while, man. Like I said, Clubhouse, if you guys want to add to the conversation, just raise your hand. Come on up. You'll be on the podcast. I'm really hoping that everybody in YouTube can hear me. Like I think 2 weeks ago, we had a situation in which for whatever reason, the microphone got switched over and it was just not set up correctly. So I apologize for that. So this was kind of cool. So a little, an aside here before we get to the next article, because Clubhouse records all the audio, we were able to salvage the podcast that's why the audio may have sounded kind of funny at the first part of that, because we pulled the audio from Clubhouse and we were able to put that over the video and everything. Okay, Jenny, what's up, Jenny? She's on YouTube. She says they can hear you loud and clear, but they can hear me loud and clear. Cool. Thanks, Jenny. And thanks for joining the show live. But anyway, we were able to salvage the audio from a couple of weeks ago by taking the Clubhouse audio and then putting it on the podcast. So if you guys have listened to the first 15 minutes of a show 2 weeks ago and you're like, where's the audio on that? Just go to the podcast. That's where it is. We may have re-uploaded it, but I don't know if it's out there. Okay. So I encourage you guys, based on this article, especially, go to the bottom of the article, read the content of the article, because if you're just a standard consumer that's only reading headlines and not diving in, you're going to miss that mortgage applications to purchase actually rose 1% last week. Key piece of news. All right, Redfin. Redfin has a survey that says 1 in 5 millennials believe they will never own a home. 1 in 5 millennials believe they will never own a home. So I don't know if this is kind of partial, I don't know, would you call it depression from people being like, oh, I want to own a home, but I can't own a home given this rate environment. Roughly 1 in 10 Gen Z respondents believe they'll never own a home. Affordability is the number one barrier. About 1/3 of Gen Zers and millennials say mortgage rates are too high. Of the Gen Zers and millennials who plan on buying soon, 2 in 5 are working a side hustle to afford their down payment. So nearly 1 out of every 5, 18% of millennials, 12% of Gen Zers who replied to a recent housing survey believe they will never own a home. The lack of affordability was the number one factor. Nearly half, 46% of millennials, and 1/3, 33% of Gen Zers say their lack of ability to save for a down payment is the barrier. And more than 1/3 of both Gen Zers and millennials say mortgage rates are too high. So it's got a really good chart I'm showing on the live stream here. And the chart title is Homes Are Too Expensive. Affordability is the number one barrier to Gen Z and home ownership. So the number of people that are not interested in a home is somewhere around 12 to 15%-ish, maybe just over, maybe 17%-ish. And that's across millennials, Gen Zers, and just overall numbers. So the regular upkeep and maintenance is what keeps about 15% of people out. They don't want to put work or effort to maintain a home they own. That was only about 7%. So I guess you could, flip this chart and say 93% of people are willing to put in work into a home. The recent loss of unemployment, that affected about 10% of people. Need to pay off student loans first was pretty big. But the number one issue, roughly 47%-ish on both millennials and Gen Zers, thought the homes were too expensive. Now, overall, that number went down there. So that's interesting that only about 43% or maybe 44% of the overall felt that homes are too expensive. Mortgage rates are too high was number two, and then ability to save for the down payment. I think the further we get into a high inflation environment with, possible recession, a lot of people are talking about the recession, then you're going to have, it's going to be harder and harder for someone to save money for a down payment. The more they are spending on outflow, the more they're spending on flour prices. The consumer price index came out again today. And let me see if that's on, I don't think it's on the rundown, but the CPI numbers came out, I believe this morning, and I haven't had time to dig deep into them. But I know flour was up 13%. That's the number I watch as a baker. But all the consumables, they're up, and the more of those normal things that people have to buy, just, milk, eggs, bread, butter, the higher those things get that people use to survive, then the harder it is going to be for your average person to save money for anything. The other thing that they're noticing is an increase of credit card spending and a lot of unsecured debt. And the more people that are expanding into credit card spending, then it's going to be harder for them to save for a down payment. Olivier, he's in Canada. He says a lot of people don't know how to save. Well, I think we've been through a spoiled time period in the last 15 years where maybe they didn't feel the need to save because everything was going so well, everything was going so great, and there was talks of recessions, but it never really happened. There were like mini dips here and there, but home prices still went up. People still had good jobs. They were still able to afford. They're still getting some pay increases compared to what they now. Inflation is so high that it's outpacing the income. It's outpacing the jobs, and it's going to be a natural impact of the Fed raising rates. There's going to be less money out in the economy. There's going to be less businesses able to expand. There will be less jobs in the future. And that's how that works. When he raises rates, that's what it does. And because there's less jobs, then there's going to be less orders for stuff. So less people are going to be buying things. And when less people buy things, that's what brings prices back down or kind of tamps down inflation. So we're going to see that happen. And I think this will be another time period where being a good steward of your money, having a budget, living by that budget, especially us business owners. I mean, we're going to have to take a hard look at the P&Ls and figure out where to cut that doesn't impact our bottom line as far as the income goes. Jenny says, peeps are going to be driven to move to more affordable places to live. Yes, I love this take. If the math works and they can afford a new job or work remote, it could be their solution. Then she said, Florida insurance is killing deals way more than interest rates or affordability in their area. That's good. So I love this take about moving. I don't live in Beverly Hills currently because I can't afford to live in Beverly Hills. So if I could afford to live in Beverly Hills, maybe I would, but I don't. And so I live in a very affordable part of the country because that's what we've chosen to do. It's more affordable there. What's up, Kevin? Kevin came up on Clubhouse. How's it going, man? You want to add to this discussion?
Good afternoon, Ray. Yeah, I jumped up as soon as I heard the word affordability come into the room, come into play. I think housing affordability is the big old saying, yesterday's price is not today's price. Keeps coming up, and I was laughing yesterday, just coming back, just thinking that, man, it's crazy what we could have gotten last year or even 2 years ago at that benchmark 250 versus now what you can get for $250,000. It's so different, and I think many millennials have kind of expressed concerns about their ability to buy an affordable home. So I think that's what's kind of like the big disparity between millennials and baby boomers. I think it's pretty much the affordability, right? I think what baby boomers could have afforded back then versus what a millennial could afford now is super different. That's what I just wanted to throw in there.
Yeah. What do you think the answer is for all that?
Man, you brought up saving. I think it's a different perspective in how they save and how millennials save versus how baby boomers save. I have three millennial kids, and I think it's, having good habits, um, training them with good habits, with saving, and learning what debt to income ratios are, and talking about the different demands in different climates. Like you were just talking about actually buying a home in California versus buying a home possibly in Arkansas. Um, you know, I think education plays a lot with it. Because we're talking about um, affordability, and I guess what we can buy now versus what we could have buy then, or probably what we can buy in the future. I think it comes back to education, and having those conversations with those coming up behind us.
I love that. Yeah, speaking of, you do not look old enough, by the way, to have three millennial kids. That's incredible. Uh, but speaking of discipline, one of the things that I noted in there is millennials working side hustles to save for a down payment. Are any of your kids doing that? Have they picked up anything on the side that they can do?
Yeah, my eldest, he just got out the military. He's 28. He just got out. I want to say about 2 years ago. He ended up working two jobs when he came out. To kind of, he doesn't really have to save for a home, but he wants to save additional money to get into what what he really wants, so that he won't be house poor. Because we talk about it. Mom is a mortgage broker as well, so we talk about the finances and not being house poor when you buy a home.
Sorry about that. I think an ad just started playing one of these things. Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to teach. We're trying to teach the good stewardship of money, and there's no shame in picking up a little side hustle here and there to have a little extra money to do something. I think that is going to be a mode of the future that is just kind of normalized. I feel like it was back in the day. Like, when I was in college, I feel like everybody had a side hustle of something. There was always somebody doing something. And I feel like that just kind of went away for a little while. But I do believe it's back. Let me show you this chart. So Gen Zers, let me make it bigger for the YouTubes. There it is. So 2 in 5 Gen Zers and millennials are working side hustles to save for down payments. Some are going to be taking the equity of another home they own, but not very many. Work a second job and then save directly from paychecks are number 1 and number 2. I thought this number was interesting too. About 23% or so are going to get a cash gift from family. Some are going to be doing stocks. And then I guess that's about the same. The cash gifts from family and the sell another home are about the same. So you do have some millennials that already own a home that will be cashing out on that home in order to purchase another one. But thanks for the perspective, Kevin. Thanks for joining the show today. Also really whenever someone from Clubhouse speaks, I show the Clubhouse screen on the web-based version of Clubhouse on the show. So people on YouTube and stuff can see you guys. And I like the new layout. It doesn't have like the fake phone or whatever around it. And it looks good. It looks really sharp when I share the screen and show it. So I'm a fan. They've made a whole bunch of changes to Clubhouse recently, and I'm a fan. Okay, so one of the things that we love to do is play a blame game. Why are home prices so expensive? Well, Barclays blames the boomers. So this was an interesting report. U.S. home prices across the country are surging. The spike in interest rates, which shot 7%, has created a golden handcuff effect. So people are still holding onto their properties when they're sitting in a house that has a 3% mortgage on it. The number of available homes on the market at the end of August was down by more than 9% from the same time last year, and a stunning 45% from the typical amount before the pandy began in early 2020. So 45% less inventory before the pre-pandy time period. Now, if you remember, I've said this several times on the show, so I'm not going to belabor it too much. This is interesting. I don't like this part about the Clubhouse. I just got a warning that said that if I want to keep listening, I have to download the app to continue listening from the web. That's not smart. That means I'll have to redo it with an incognito window so I can display you guys. Anyway, I'll have to make a request that they remove that. Okay, so anyway, the U.S. housing sector is on the upswing, even with mortgage rates and multi-decade highs. The strategist led by Jonathan Miller wrote, although much has been attributed to shortages of existing properties and mortgage lock-in effects, we think strong demand is a symptom of the aging population. It may seem paradoxical because the aging population tends to require fewer homes, but that's not the case with baby boomers, who are currently between the ages of 57 and 75. Boomers are reaching retirement age and forming new households due to divorce or death, but they aren't freeing up existing supply. So we've been talking for a couple of years about the silver wave and how it never showed up, and will it ever show up? And if this report holds true, it's just not going to. While it's likely that older people tend to prefer smaller housing units, it's not true that older population requires fewer housing units. So if anything, you could see more competition in the middle and bottom 1/3 of the market and more supply as they leave their existing quote unquote large home. So you could theoretically have a slight softening of the luxury market, but a huge spike in demand as they continue to, downsize, or they're basically not going to nursing homes because they're healthier. That's what it boils down to, is if people are in better health, they stay out of the nursing homes and they live longer, which means they need somewhere to live longer. And this is where the thumbnail came from today. For the audio listeners, I used AI to generate myself as an old man, which really is kind of disappointing because all it did was add a couple of wrinkles and make my beard white. That's the difference in Ray Young and Ray Old, which I don't know if, I wish there was more of a difference, basically is what I'm saying. But in the background, I put a house that needed to be updated. That's what I told the AI to generate for me. And it generated a house with wood trim, a flowery wallpaper, and it has some kind of like glowing TV thing. I guess it's a light. I don't know. It all looks like it's from the 60s and 70s in a house that needs to be updated. It's basically an investor special, is what you would call it if you were a real estate agent showing that property. But the theory is the silver wave is not going to happen. Boomers still need housing. So the answer to this is not necessarily wait until boomers move and they free up housing units. The answer is going to be, we need more housing units. The answer seems to be more construction. And I just met with one of the top builders in our area last week, and that's tough to do. They're in an environment in which land, labor, and materials are all higher, and their interest rate is also higher. So they're not really raring to build real quickly. And some of them were bit by the 2008 housing bubble that burst, and they don't want to be sitting there holding a whole bunch of inventory headed into a recession. When we know that historically recessions, home prices still go up. All but 2 recessions, home prices have continued to increase 3 to 6%. Only in 2 recessions did they go down, and one of them only went down negative 1.9%. The other one was the housing-led recession with fraud and the mortgage and all that stuff, which is super rare. It's the anomaly. But our generation thinks that that's a normal thing, and it's not normal. So that's not the only issue. If you have more people living longer and you have more people staying in their homes, not going to nursing homes, not necessarily selling and downsizing, and then if they do pass away, they're passing their real estate to the next generation. So you still have less inventory for everything, including rents. Now, there was an article about some of the softening of apartment rentals, but in this report by Redfin, it says the rental market tracker landlords are charging near record rents. However, this also might be the sign of a peak because they are having to offer some concessions. So the median asking rent in August was $2,052. That's just $2 below a new record high set earlier this year. Instead of taking a haircut on some rent, some landlords are throwing in a one-time concession to attract renters as vacancies start to rise. Here's the report by Redfin. I want to show you guys the chart. The chart for audio listeners shows basically 2 red lines. One is the median rent, one is the year over year. And on the median rent, you see it starting around, is that 1650 or so, February of 2019. And then it just continues to escalate where it peaked in August at $2,054. It did dip down a little bit. Now it's back up to $2,052. When you look at the year over year numbers, in February of 2022 had the highest increase of over 15%. It was like 17 or 18%. And now currently it's only an increase over last year of 0.1%. So year over year, it hasn't really increased, which shows that the rental curve may be flattening, to borrow a pandemic terminology. So while asking rents are near the record all-time highs, tenants in some parts of the country are finding deals. With vacancies on the rise, some landlords are doing one-time discounts to attract renters while maintaining asking rents on paper. This means that they're effectively coming down in some areas, even though the declines don't show up in the asking rent data. So this quote is from John Ziegler. He's the chief executive officer of Rent, which is a Redfin company. Really, the whole name of the company is Rent? Huh, that was good. It's a rent and a period. A year ago, really didn't see concessions in the market. Fast forward to today, they're far more common, with landlords offering from 1 to 3 months free in an effort to attract new tenants without lowering their asking rents. Higher end properties are beginning to see pressure in certain markets. A significant portion of the units are coming online in a higher end and luxury segment. We're still seeing a lot of competition for more affordable rents due to less supply, as well as increased pressure on consumer wallets, limiting the availability to stretch for that higher level experience. Here's a chart also that shows how rent holds up in the Midwest. Well, that's kind of a mess of a chart. I don't really know that it tells us that much. It's basically similar, just more flat than the chart I showed earlier. So for more information on that, check out Redfin. But this, if you work with a lot of investors, this is something you should be telling your investor clients. If they're taking over a property that raised rents last year, I doubt they're going to be able to raise rents again this year at the same rate. They're not going to be able to have the same investment, basically. So they should probably moderate their estimations. Now, I've also talked about those in second home markets, like that do the Airbnb and VRBO. The Airbnb CEO came out and said, with all the increased inventory of available small short-term rentals, that means rentals are going to be more affordable for people. So this is a great thing in the marketplace. However, if you're an investor that bought that short-term rental and you were expecting a certain return, you need to moderate that return a little bit and become more conservative, maybe cut some expenses, find a different way to, pay that mortgage when you don't have tenants in it, because it is going to be impacted. Olivier says the white beard makes Ray look so much better. Oh, thank you, Olivier. I felt like I looked like Santa Claus, to be honest. Jenny said she almost passed on the thumbnail because it doesn't look like me. That's hilarious. Well, that's good to know that it was that different. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I should put me on the other side so people at least recognize that. Jenny says it's a huge issue with projected rentals versus actual renters. The last 3 years have been the highest ever. Yeah. And I think with this report, your investors are going to love you when you say, hang on a minute, you've got an increase here of 20%. I don't know that that's going to happen. Let me show you why. And then you can take them to this Redfin report and kind of give them the details. Okay, so housing market update. You would think with the increase in the cost of money to purchase a home and the affordability issues and the inflation that we're experiencing and the Fed, out to basically cut jobs, that this would mean home prices have to go down. And if you think that, you would be wrong. This report from Redfin says that prices have actually gone up. While demand has gone down, prices have gone up. Let me display this real quick. Okay, so the headline there, housing market update, prices go up while the demand goes down. Although mortgage rates are inching down from their last peak, housing affordability isn't improving much, with the median U.S. home sale price 4.5% up year over year, according to 4 weeks ending September 3rd, and mortgage rates remaining above 7%. Typically, monthly mortgage payment is $2,612. That's just $18 shy of the all-time high set in May. So prices are rising due to supply shortage. That's the issue. This is the issue that I said in my viral reel that went, I had a reel that went viral, if I could brag for a second. And the comments are completely like trolls, which is really fun for me because I love to troll them back. It's like 2.6 million people have watched this reel. And what I said in it is that the issue is not the rates. The issue is not affordability. It's not jobs. The issue is supply. And until supply is corrected, until supply is figured out, home prices will remain high, if not continue to go up. So the point of the reel was, if you're thinking about buying and you want to buy at 7% rate, or you want to buy a house and the rate is 7%, go ahead and buy. Because if rates go down, then that only means more competition in the marketplace. Home prices are going to continue to increase. And if rates go up, you're in a unique situation now where you're basically buying at a recent low. So if you can buy the house you want to buy and the rates are 7%, well, go ahead and buy it, because I think this is a rare win-win situation for buyers in this market. So the total number of homes on the market is down 18% year over year, with the biggest decline since February 2022. Now listings are down 9%, as many homeowners refuse to part with the relatively low mortgage rate. And as we said earlier, that number is 45% below, so it's half of the inventory that we had pre-pandy. The market is marching on, especially for turnkey homes. Now, this is a key indicator too. There's a lot of buyers that want to buy, but they don't want to do anything to it. So that it needs to be turnkey. So as you're working with sellers, they need to position their property in a way that's going to benefit them in this market. One of the best ways to position themselves is to make sure the home is ready to move in. The more ready to move in that home is, the higher price they're going to get on the market, and they can sell in this market in which buyers are being more picky because of their wallets. So if folks can figure out a way instead of buy then rent, they will. Some buyers are cutting back on other expenses, and we've already talked about kind of what millennials are doing, what everyone is doing to try to afford down payments and things like that. So there's some additional charts and statistics on Redfin, and we've already talked about the median sell price being higher this year, 4.5% higher. And I've shown those charts in a previous show to show all those, but you guys can go to Redfin to see that report. Next up, skittish sellers, hungry buyers. How the Fed tanked housing. And I have a feeling that Elizabeth Nightingale will like this story, because she said Fed schemed. Elizabeth said she thought the thumbnail was David Letterman. That's amazing. That's really great. Jenny says, that's a huge issue with, I've already read that. This is her second comment. And agents are advising the projected, not the actual. Yes. Now, as a listing agent, I'm going to try to put it in the best light possible. I'm not going to be fake with the projection, but I am going to put it in the best possible light of what's possible. But as a buyer agent, as someone that's helping your client to acquire these investment properties, you have to tamp down those projections based on the reality of what things are looking like. And there is an article, it doesn't look like I put it in the rundown. It was just a brief mention, I guess you could say. But one of the things that we're seeing is the last couple of years, there's been a lot of capital that has gone into apartments. And there's a lot of apartment investors and developers around the nation recently. And the increase of those apartments is also going to add inventory to the apartment market. So if you have an apartment buyer, they have to know that those projections may be tamped down, not only by just finding the limit of what is possible in that area, but also of the increased competition of other available rentals from newer projects that are starting to finish that were started a couple of years ago. So they just have to be aware, make them aware of everything, advise them well. And Jenny, she 100% agrees with me, which makes me love you even more. Skittish sellers, hungry buyers, how the Fed tanked housing. So this article is on Inman, and it goes pretty hard in the paint, but it's from Goldman Sachs. So the Goldman Sachs economist, Michael Murdoch. Wait, is that really? It's Murdoch. Yeah, Murdoch, Murdoch. You can tell I've been watching the trials. If you've been keeping up the trials, you know when I said Murdoch, you know what I'm talking about. Our Goldman Sachs economist Michael Murdoch criticized the Federal Reserve's rate strategy at Ben Kinney's company's Built How conference, sharing how upcoming policies may impact 2024. The past 3 years could have been different, he says. That was a gut punch. Goldman Sachs Investment Strategy Group VP Michael Murdoch delivered at Built How. Here's the quote. Everything was just kind of muddling along. Then we had a pandemic, which was a huge shock to the system. This was something like a natural disaster. So this is not a normal economic cycle, he told the audience while perched next to Kinney. Effectively, we've turned off the car, right? We've shut it off because we're trying to protect people. That meant that the gross domestic product collapsed and unemployment spiked. We then responded by having a tremendous amount of monetary and fiscal stimulus. So he's talking about during the pandy, this is what happened. We're going down the highway 100 miles an hour. The Federal Reserve absolutely slammed on the brakes. He added, in reference to a series of record rate hikes, it's easy for us to be armchair quarterbacks after the fact, but it's pretty clear that we should have done something different. Downshifting from 80 to 60 to 40, that kind of slowdown is much better than what he effectively did. So he goes on, you guys can read this on Inman. We never really recovered from the global financial crisis. We've talked about this in the past. We never really replenished the stock. And then because of supply chain issues, like getting a garage door, for example, refrigerators, y'all remember refrigerators? You couldn't order, it was like 10 months out for a refrigerator. It was ridiculous. And then there were some loans that required a refrigerator to be in the house or they're not going to fund the deal. Windows, 11-month wait on Windows. I remember that. There were people that were putting in like temporary windows and they looked like trash, but they got the deal done. They got it to close and the windows showed up when they showed up. So the U.S. economy has been incredibly resilient in large part because of 70% of the debt the households hold is in their mortgage. So even if interest rates are spiking, people aren't moving. They're still able to weather the interest rate spike. So it's an interesting take. I agree that, maybe we could have done a downshift strategy, but the real problem was our economy was rocking along even through a pandy. I know a lot of people had lost their jobs and stuff like that, but it was still a good economy. People were just moving to different parts of the country that didn't really shut down. I mean, Arkansas shut down. What? We were just kind of normal. I don't even remember. I know some restaurants and stuff shut down, but they just went to like order out. And a lot of people were ordering out because they don't cook at home still. And, and you couldn't buy stuff to cook at home either because there was a run on grocery stores because everyone thought we'd be out of toilet paper. Those are some weird times. Those are going to be weird stories that we tell our kids and grandkids, or actually grandkids and great grandkids of. It's going to be a weird time where our grandparents told us stories of the Great Depression. There were bread lines, and people couldn't afford anything. It's not going to be it. It's like, everybody could afford everything and they went and bought it. They put such a hurt on the orders that we had huge inflation because everyone just bought whatever they wanted because we're rich America. It's crazy. Crazy times. Anyway, if the Fed would have not lowered rates to zero, remember we went all the way down to zero? If we could have moderated that decrease, because the Fed turned around later and said that was probably a mistake to go that fast down to zero. If we could have moderated that decrease and then moderated the increase, we'd all probably be a little bit better off. Inflation would probably be a lot less. Home prices everything would be a lot less. It would just kind of be flatter. And that flatter creates predictability, less volatility. And that's what keeps people in the market. That's what keeps, people investing in markets when they can predict what's going to happen. Now we're in it's not predictable. 2 weeks ago at the Tom Ferry conference, Steve Harney said, here's what all the economists know. Nothing. No one knows what's going to happen and when. It's all a debate. Everyone's discussing what's possible, but no one can foresee where we're headed. And that volatility just makes everyone back up from the marketplace. It's like every year when school starts. Every year when school starts, people kind of back up from the marketplace. They take care of their kid. They go to, buy the 25-cent crayons and, they're worried about other stuff. They're buying the backpacks. They're doing all that stuff. And then after the kid's in school, it seems like the market heats right back up again. That's what's happening with volatility. Anytime there's an increase in volatility in the market, you have a big portion of the market that kind of takes a break, takes a step back and says, wait, we need to kind of reevaluate everything. We're not sure where things are headed, so we don't know what our next step is. But most people who are buying a house are not buying a house because of an investment. Speculators made up like 15, 20%, like the REITs, the big groups that were buying large neighborhoods and big portions of houses and but to rent out. That was only 15, I think it was 15% of the market in this last year. It was 22% the year before that, 15 the year before that. So it is going back down. But the rest of the market is looking and saying, well, I have to move for a job. So do I want to rent or do I want to buy? And that's the question. Can they afford what they want for a time period, and then they can eventually sell that and buy something else bigger later? Or can they not afford what they want and they're going to have to rent because of a job change or because of a divorce situation or a change in family status, or, they're having 6 kids, whatever's happening. That's what's driving people to a different home. And if there's an absence of that condition, if there is no condition that necessitates a move, there will be fewer people moving. And so now the people in the market are people that have to move. Somebody's finishing a house and they're sitting in a house. Chances are they're going to sell it if they can't rent it out. All right. Sorry, I went off on a little bit of a tangent. All right. It's time for some industry tea. So this is a quick mention. Welcome, California. You could join the rest of the 44 states that have already done this. California homebuyers will finally get an option to close virtually. Woo! Oh, y'all are probably excited. California lawmakers have signed off on a remote online notarization, a RON, putting the nation's most populous state on track to fall in line with 44 others that have already approved a process that can speed real estate closings. It was SB 696 that was approved by a 39-0 vote in the California Senate and 78-0 by the Assembly. So good job. There is a requirement to identify identity proofing. According to the bill's text, notaries who perform RON in California will be able to use an identity proofing process or service where there's a third party that confirms the identity of the individual through a review of personal information from public or proprietary data sources. Elizabeth Nightingale says, I guess in South Carolina, virtual closings are considered too modern. Y'all don't do them there in South Carolina? I think we still do mail out closings, but I don't know that they're doing virtual yet. We haven't had a huge need for it because, it's pretty easy to email something and then they just overnight it back. That would be great if we could. It seems like we have Ron here. I'll have to look it up. But I haven't had anybody use it yet. So maybe not. With California moving towards RON, allowing only 5 states have yet to pass it. Okay, so here's the 5 states that don't do it. Connecticut, Georgia, Mississippi, South Carolina, and South Dakota. 3 of those states, Connecticut, Georgia, and South Carolina, are, quote, attorney closing states where the lawyer must attend and supervise related closings. Oh, my goodness. Oh, Elizabeth, you just said this. She said in South Carolina, you got to put your shoes on and go see the lawyers to close. Oh, man. I feel like there may be some changes coming to South Carolina. We've already talked about what's happening with your MLS rules and all that stuff. So maybe there's some things in the works. All right. And the last thing I wanted to note is we talked about this when it happened, but we really didn't go into detail. Olivier says it's overrated. Are attorneys overrated? Shoes overrated? Or remote notary overrated, Olivier? It's not clear from your response which you're saying is overrated. I believe Canadians use shoes. Oh, no, he says shoes are overrated. But y'all have like snowshoes, right? I mean, y'all can't really go outside without blistering winter conditions, right? Okay, so let's talk about the MLS cyber attack. It's a wake-up call. Okay, I feel like this is a real issue. But I also feel like this was, talked about at a time where some other stuff is happening. So they're like, well, This would be good to put out as well. All right, but we'll talk about the MLS cyber attack. Were any of you affected by the MLS cyber attack? If you were affected, let me know. Raise your hand. Come on up. All right, so here it is. I hate this quote. We cannot let this crisis go to waste. It says at the very top of the Realtor magazine article. If you track down who starts saying that quote, it'll worry you. But anyway, that's beside the point. Brokers and agents around the country felt the effects of an August cyber attack that took down 23 MLSs around the country. 2 weeks after the attack, some markets are beginning to come back online, while others continue to experience severe loss of capabilities. Associations are manually recreating critical functions. The MLSs are battling uphill to find new ways to update and advertise listings. I wonder if they went back to books, like back in the day. You had to go to this or office and figure out what they had for sale. After the leadership summit, August 13th through 15th, I was talking with some MLS folks about what we were seeing. MLS using Google Sheets. Oh no. And associates using Excel to track membership and listing information. Wow. Creative and practical, says the author. But we were dumbfounded their systems and put them in the state. This is a crisis in the real estate industry must take to heart. Whether you're a broker, agent, appraiser, leadership role, association executive, MLS director, you have every right to be exasperated, and accountability will come in time. There's all kinds of accountability opportunities at the NAR, I feel. Accountability would be great. Maybe we should talk to the NAR accountability guy. First, we need to acknowledge the gravity of the situation. Well, if they would have done that about some other situations, I think people maybe would respect them a little more. Some cities, primarily housing marketplaces, cease to operate for a time, continue to struggle. All right, so what are they doing? Primary strategic planning questions. Which of our services are essential? What threats are there? How do we mitigate the threats? What tools to use? While they're navigating the crisis, they had to go through listing creation, listing submission, listing storage, listing search, and listing publication. That's basically what your MLS offers right there. So now it says MLSs provide much more, but these are the table stakes. I mean, that's pretty much all they are, right? Reporting, you get reporting. That's cool. Historic data, that's useful. But this is it. Listing creation, listing submission, listing storage, listing search, and publication. That's what you need at the time to serve the client that you're working with. So the article goes on. It's in the magazine, Realtor magazine. You guys can check it out. It goes on to talk about analyzing the opportunities and basically using the crisis to turn it into a positive. I get that part. That's fine. But that quote is not a great quote. Analyzing opportunities from 30,000 feet. So it's a pretty good write-up. I agree with most that's in it. But I thought it was ironic that he was talking about accountability in this context, but there seems to be a bit of lack of that in the other context. All right. So before I end the show, any of you want to say something? Hop up. Matt, you want to add something? Are you still in the airport? Where are you going, Matt?
No, I just got back. I was in Scottsdale for a couple of days, but
that's nice. Playing golf?
I disagree. No, it was 112 degrees when I landed, and they say it's a dry heat, but
oh my goodness,
terrible, all engulfing. It feels like you're sitting in traffic with your windows down, and it's 100 degrees, and nothing's moving.
Oh wow,
is what it feels like. But at a leadership thing. But yeah, I disagree with you. I do not like Clubhouse now. I mean,
don't like the changes to the actual app?
I do not. No, not at all. Not one bit.
What is it?
I can't find any rooms. I can't find
any
friends. I can't. There's nothing.
I agree that it is tougher to navigate than it was. I didn't like the change that they made last time. I felt like the change that they made last time made it more difficult to use than the very first version. I like the first version the best still.
Yeah. Facts. Big facts.
Yeah. But I do like the web layout. I did have to use, it did take it off my screen. He just popped down. It did take it off my screen. Okay. I'll invite you as a speaker, Matt. I don't know what happened, man. Did you just take yourself off of Clubhouse?
Yeah. I don't like this. I accidentally swiped left looking for the chat, and it put me in some audio space where people were just talking, and I'm like, "This isn't a room. These are just
Oh,
voice
that's
notes that
weird.
people are leaving."
Yeah, I don't get
hate
the
it.
I do not get the voice note thing. But I did have to join an incognito window. So to get that little warning flash off there and be able to display you guys again. So I don't like that part. I don't like the new interface on the app. I think they're going to have some, I think they're going to have some negative backlash. And this is not good because Clubhouse was already becoming a place for people that use Clubhouse. And that's it. It wasn't becoming a place for everyone again. And they got to figure out how to kind of, make it more approachable for everyone. Because when it's not, then you just have a very limited scope of people that are going to use it. So I don't know. It needs work. I do like the web-based display, but other than that, it needs work. I think you're right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us today. You can find me at Ray Zorback. That's RayZorback. Instagram is really kind of the hub. And I should mention, I'm speaking next week in California. So if you guys are going to the California Realtors Association, I'm going to be talking about AI and how we use that in my business. I use it for a ton of things. The backgrounds and stuff like that is kind of what I use it. That's my plaything. But I use it for SOPs and all kinds of stuff. So if you want to get in on that, go to the California Realtors Association deal in Anaheim. And I'm doing a little panel, and then I'm doing a full workshop. And we're going to dive in on how to practically use AI in your business. We're not going to go into this deep stuff like, oh, here's how to code and put it on we're not doing that. We're just like, here's AI. Here's how you can currently practically use it in your business to have a positive impact. So if you're interested in seeing that, shoot me a DM. I can tell you, I'll be speaking on the 19th, and I'll be staying there that evening too. So I'll be available to hang out. If you're in town, let me know. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, hit the bell, do all the YouTube-y things, and over on iTunes as well. Subscribe there. And we'll see you guys not next week, because I'll be traveling. So in 2 weeks, I'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Bye, everybody.